is people looking for now? They
Ways to
don't
make
want
money.
to. They want to make money and make more money than the inflation itself, and
Yep.
that is not easy right now. It was easy before, and now to keep your savings in the long term, you need to be investor. So, and what is coming to help is the DeFi, but the DeFi needs to evolve to be secure. So, if we get maturity of the technology, then these banks or these institutions will onboard the retail investor
Mm.
to all this technology. And Algorand is in an incredible position to be the blockchain that they will onboard on.
Welcome to AlgoHQ. I am your host, Karel, here with Pablo Yabo, the CEO of Rand Labs. Welcome, Pablo.
Thank you, Ibu. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Oh, thank you for coming on the show. So, you are the CEO of the company that created the API, the blockchain explorer, and the main wallet for Algorand. So, can you just first, I just want to know, how did you get involved with Algorand? Who picked you, or how did you apply? How did you really get to this position?
Yeah, it's a like a long story, but I've been in the ecosystem in crypto for a while before Algorand. I started in 2013. At the end of that year, I met in that year I met a friend of mine that he was involved in Bitcoin, and he was in crypto for a while, and he talked me about Bitcoin, and I really found it very disruptive, amazing technology, and even the myth was something out of this world. And really, that day, I decided to dedicate my work on this technology. And then, like, I work with different technologies in Ethereum, more EVM compatible technologies. After Bitcoin, of course, at the first stage, uh, and then I found Algorand because Mitchell, my partner, he's from Boston. He was living in Boston near MIT, and he was doing several courses there, uh, and he met Silvio, and he was explaining about Algorand, and he told me and another friend of ours, David, and that this was completely disruptive. And so I started paying attention. I met Silvio by a video call, and then I saw Silvio presenting Algorand in Argentina, in my country.
Mm-hmm.
I found it that it was really something new because we were hearing about proof of stake at that time, like a lot of different people were trying to implement proof of stake, but this was really something that it was easy to understand. uh, you see the clear value, and you even see the trick how was this done. And when you see the background of Silvio, say, okay, this guy, he, he's amazing. So he was preparing all his life to create this protocol. So uh, that was something that you see really when he was explaining, and everyone was asking things, and he was so clear, and his knowledge was so deep that he really convinced me that this will really work, and this blockchain will be a completely like a new technology that will change the ecosystem. And then I met the business team and the
Okay.
rest of the technical team,
Yep.
then and they were all incredible. All the background was incredible. So, and we decided with Mitchell and David to dedicate full time to Algorand. It was 2018 at the
Mm.
beginning even.
And that's a full year before the token even went public, and the
Yeah.
company was incorporated. So um, how did you get involved in coding and computer science? So what like brought you on the path to having David and Mitchell introduce you to Silvio and the team? What were some of the from like when you were a young man? How did you get to that point of realizing that you were interested in disruptive technologies? Because you said you first got into Bitcoin and then you got into Algorand. So clearly you like things being shaken up and broken from the status quo. So, how can you tell me a little bit about how you got into computer science and like this very complex technology?
Yeah, I started really coding when I was 10 years old. Um, so at that time,
Wow.
it was like a game or playing with some of our friends. Uh, I went to one of the, I think it was the only place to learn coding in Argentina. It was a place that where all the small nerds were going, and and even I remember that my parents thought that the computer was some kind of toy that it was against the real life, and it wasn't something really serious. And I remember waking up 6 a.m. in the morning to call before they wake up. So I would have like maybe 3 or 4 hours of coding during the weekend before they wake up. So it was like something that was a passion from the beginning for me. So I continued coding during the all my high school, and
Okay.
I love maths. So I also uh, play like compete in the Olympics, math Olympics, and the so and I was involved in with some people related to the security environment in Argentina, the first virus and studying virus and all that stuff at that time. That was
Computer viruses?
computer viruses
Yep.
in the US, and also trying to get some kind of connection with different universities. It was difficult even at that time to connect to a place that it was outside our country, because it was very expensive to call abroad at that time. So
Yeah.
it was really an ecosystem that was full of new tricks or tools to get rid of problems. Basically,
Yeah.
at that time, it was uh, a very fun time.
Uh-huh.
And really something new, completely new, that was arising. Then internet happened, everything was changed. I got a living from this toy, and I started working in a security software security company.
Okay.
And then I went to university. I studied computer science. I and yeah, I started my first company, then another company, and now Run Labs.
So, when you spoke to Silvio for the first time, how did he know that you were the guy to go with?
I think it was on the other side, because I was more trying to convince myself to to go for Algorand at that time. And Silvio was explaining the algorithm, how it works, and and we were working with some investors to invest in Algorand.
Right.
I wasn't the investor really, but I was like a technical advisor. Uh, so it was on the other side. He was more convincing me, not convincing me, but explaining how this was working.
Mm.
So it was in the other side, but also he, at the same time, he convinced me to go for the whole thing and start developing full time and bring and create a new company specialized in Algorand.
So Algorand, Rand Labs, is that intentional? Did you start Rand Labs and name it after Algorand, or was Algorand named with Rand Labs in mind?
No, Algorand was before, and I think it's a Algorand is algorithm uh, and rand of random.
Mm,
Rand labs is rand of random and labs, but it's curious because my partner Mitchell, he made like a bunch of companies before Algorand that start with Algo as well. He
really?
has Algo SIG, for example, that it's before Algorand, because it's algorithm.
Yeah.
It comes from algorithm. So it's like a destiny.
It's something that just seems universal. Like you had so much algo in your life, and then Algorand comes in, and you're like, well,
Yeah,
it had to be something. So when you're building an API for a blockchain, can you explain for the audience what does API stand for, and what is the purpose of an API?
sure. There are different APIs. There are like the node APIs that are the ones that are building the blockchain developers. In general, I mean the blockchain owners. The For example, Algorand team. Algorand team builds an API to connect to the node, but that API, as it is, you need to access that API. You need to put a node in a place where you can access it. That is not enough for most use cases, because you need an infrastructure that scales.
Mm-hmm.
So you will need like a bunch of nodes at the same time, uh, and the dApps hitting those nodes as they were one. So to reduce the complexity on the apps development. So and then also you will need more information than just the node give you. So
What do you
uh,
mean?
what I mean is that, for example, if you see the Algo Explorer,
Yep.
you have the information of the blocks or the transactions, but you have all more information. For example, the rich list, or the super staking program, or the price, or this. All those are different APIs that are not related to the node. So we have an indexer. So Algorand node has a database.
Mm.
That database we retrieve from our servers to structure the information in another way. So the DApps can ask us through APIs. API basically is just a function that you can ask from another computer. It's like an open function. I'm not very technical in this answer, but I'm trying to just to show how it works. But it's like a, a function that you say, this function requires these parameters, and I
Okay.
will answer this information.
Mm.
That's an API, and the URL
And it's
is the
open
endpoint.
source. That's what you mean. So
It's not open source. It's open the interface. Like uh, what the way you ask an answer is open.
okay,
You document that. It can be, there are some
gotcha.
undocumented APIs that
Mm-hmm.
no one knows about, because all the applications have APIs, but they are private,
Mm-hmm.
so they are not intended to use outside the functionality. Uh, but when you work with open APIs, you have to document the APIs
Okay.
to show how they work and what you expect from these APIs. These APIs are different levels. There is one level that is the node API, that Algorand node API, and there are different levels that we provide for the AlgoExplorer and for our partners
Okay.
that use. the API, that are more that have more functionality related to different things, or structured in different ways that to scale. For example, if you want the historical balance of an account, you cannot get that from the node directly.
You can't get
And
that on
what
the Algo Explorer website, right? I don't
you
think
can
you
get
can.
in the AlgoHQ website, and you can get through an API that we provide,
Okay.
because we uh, keep the information in each transaction of the balance of the account that made the transaction.
Mm,
So in that way, we provide that information in a structured way through an API.
okay.
So there are different levels of APIs.
Okay. So an API is a information open information provider. That's what you're saying, or is it
Yeah,
also, or is it an open, not open source, but open book, like way to ask questions to another computational system, which will then use that information.
yeah, is that is exactly.
Okay.
So you can build systems on top of other systems, and
Gotcha.
you can
Okay.
uh, like you can do more complex things based on information that you retrieve from another system.
Okay. Um, so when it comes to, there are a few announcements recently. One, y'all, by which I mean Algorand, Algo Foundation, are accepting more people to run relay nodes, and you're also going to open up running. It was a different kind of node, not a relay node, an informational node, which will let people vote on the referendum to move to the new governance system. So how can you explain, like, how do you feel, and are you excited about Algorand nodes becoming more decentralized and more global and more scalable?
Yeah, I think a it's very important to open the relay nodes to the general public, to generate incentives uh, to the public, to because really the relay nodes are the ones that are answering the rest of the nodes most of the information. Because if you run a node, your node uh, doesn't trust any other node. It can verify everything by itself, but there is if it needs more information that it doesn't store locally, because the idea is that anyone can run a node. To make that happen in Algorand, eh, they have like an incredible design where you store in your node only a small part of the blockchain, but you keep track of like a tree of information where you can verify any information that comes from another place. So if you want to know uh, the information of a transaction that happened in a place that you don't have that information, you can ask a relay node. The relay node answers the information, and you verify by your node
Mm.
that that information comes from the blockchain. And
Does that use VRFs, verifiable, excuse me, random functions, or zero knowledge proofs? Is that a zero knowledge proof application?
no, this is more like related to the blockchain in the, like the Merkle trees,
Okay.
where uh, you keep like I don't know how to explain exactly, but uh, there are these trees. If you have like the roots of these trees, you can verify all the leaves.
Okay, I like that metaphor. I see what you mean. So you don't have the whole information, the whole blockchain, but you have enough to verify it with another node if you wanted that. So nobody
Yeah,
has all the information at once.
only the relay nodes.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so the relay nodes are very important to decentralize the network from the computation point of view, because it's not that someone concentrating the relay nodes can hack the network. It's not like that. Uh, it's the the risk of having of not having the relay node decentralized is that if there are too many relay nodes on a single technology, for example, imagine that you run all the relay nodes in AWS.
Okay.
There is a problem in the network of AWS for some reason, and your network will not generate any block.
Mm.
That's a is like a denial of service
Okay, I see.
in that sense. So it's not, if you have like all the relay nodes, you cannot create malicious blocks. It doesn't work in that way.
Mm.
To create malicious blocks, you need like you need to concentrate the stake, like the algos.
Yeah.
I mean, you
And then
have
in that
to.
case, if someone concentrates at all the algos that they can, they would corrupt themselves in the
They,
system.
there is really, even in that situation, there is not incentive to corrupt the network. Why? Because if you have 70% of the algos and you corrupt the network, you are losing all your money
Yeah. So there's no
because
point.
there is no point. But having one concentrating all the algos is really bad because
Mm.
it's you, they can decide which transaction uh, to be inserted in a block and which transaction cannot enter in a block. So if you imagine you are in a decentralized exchange and you want to buy a token, this guy uh, can not sell the token and put a transaction by themselves and buy the token you are buying because of some market conditions that are good to do this movement. So those kind of attacks are easy to do if you can concentrate a lot of the stake. Corrupt the network is not a big risk of these kind of things, but front running attacks or some subtle attacks are easy to find when there is a big concentration of the stake.
Okay. So with the new governance system, where is it that the more algos you have, the larger of a vote you'll have in the protocols or the votes?
Yeah, it's is that that's pure stake
Yeah.
basically. Yeah, the governance comes from the stake you hold in the network, uh, because it's the incentive to participate, and also there is no way in blockchain to do it in another way, because you cannot vote based on the amount of addresses, because that is easy to bypass. So the way the blockchain ecosystem found to verify blocks or vote are based on stake.
Yeah.
Not It's not possible to do it based on another characteristic. Otherwise, you have to vote based on CPU, like a proof of work.
Yeah.
We we haven't found another better way to do it now. Like we have two families of protocols, and this come from stake. So that's is the logic way to implement a governance in a proof of stake network.
Yeah. That yeah, perfect. So my question is, do you have central banks of nations or large companies or large financial institutions talking to y'all? You don't have to name names, but talking to you and the team and basically thinking, this is, from an outsider's perspective, does a bank want to just buy as many algos as possible to have the biggest sway in the vote and therefore make Algorand their own little baby that they can control? Like, what is there a danger of that? Is there a danger of some entity with so much money buying so many algos that they can control the vote?
That's the risk of all the networks. As decentralized, as you decentralize the stake, the risk is reduced. So it's very important because you can have like an incredible protocol that is fully decentralized. The nodes are decentralized. But if the stake is centralized, then it's a that's the weakest part. So it is very important to fully distribute all the tokens in a lot of different hands to avoid that, to make it more difficult. Because if you have one entity or two entities holding most, it, you need to corrupt one or two entities. If you have like millions of people holding, you need to go to the market and buy, and that movement uh, will generate a price pressure, so it will be more difficult and more difficult. So it's a
Yes.
that's the idea. And of course we are in an early stage of the whole distribution.
Hmm.
Bitcoin, in that sense, proof of work, uh, generates the new coins in a way that are distributed uh, completely through the CPU power. So proof of stake has an additional problem, that is distribution, because you solve the way that you accept blocks. That is great, but then you need to distribute, and that's another problem.
Yeah. The
And
tokenomics.
yeah, tokenomics are a problem. Not, I mean, it's a you need to handle. You need to
Yes.
come up with a solution how to distribute.
Hmm.
If you make an ICO or any way of of selling the tokens on startup, that's another way that there are some blockchains that did in that way, and you sold all the tokens, so are distributed. But in general, they are uh, like some entities have hold a bunch of tokens at the startup, and then they start selling, and finally it's distributed because they sell most of the tokens. But this problem comes with proof of stake, the distribution.
Has to come down to honesty, doesn't it?
Sorry.
Doesn't it have to come? It has to come down to the honesty of the holder. Like if an institution, a company, a bank wanted to buy all the algos, yes, it would be more difficult because of upward price pressure. But also at the same time, if they got all the power, would they even know what to do with it?
Yeah, but it's a we don't in blockchain we don't expect honest players. Like the algorithms need to work even if there are malicious players. You put like a number that your algorithm can. In Algorand, we expect to have 2/3 of honest players. If there is 1/3 or less of malicious players, it's okay. It's a We can tolerate that. So the idea is to have, of course, honest players, but malicious players, they exist and they will exist forever, and that's why all this complexity is generated to avoid malicious players to take over the network.
What's next for Rand Labs? You have My Algo and you have Algo Explorer. What are you working on now? Do you have a new product you're working on, or are you trying to upgrade your current suite?
We are upgrading the we are our company has more than 30 developers, so and we are growing.
Okay.
We are working every day with the teams that are dedicated full time to each product. Uh, we are on the AlgoHQ Explorer. The roadmap is huge. It's really uh, now we are working to. There are so many tokens that we cannot verify them uh, manually right now. So we are working on a way to automate this verification. We are adding application verification to add description. We are improving the the token home, adding stats related to the tokens. We will add a lot of information around the applications. We We will also add more meaningful information around applications in the future. And then we will work really strongly on the DeFi ecosystem. That it's
Hmm.
what is coming. DeFi ecosystem. It's now there is a company LD that released the first DeFi application in working application in Algorand,
Yep. Yield
and a
refinance.
lot,
Congratulations to them.
yeah, and and there are a lot of different companies working to build lending platforms, uh, DEX protocols, AMM protocols, like all over like something like Balancer. Like there are a lot of teams working to build the DeFi ecosystem in Algorand. And our idea in Algo Explorer is to show everything that is happening in the DeFi ecosystem as well.
Hmm.
So that's it for Algo Explorer. Has like a lot of things to do. Then my algo, we recently released my algo connect, which is a way to connect the apps to my algo wallet. It was really successful. Yieldly is connected through algo my algo connect. So we got like a lot of new users based on this. We are building a lot more features about around MyAlgo Connect, and also MyAlgo will grow a lot. Now it has multi-sig, it supports Ledger.
Okay.
We are pushing some changes on the Ledger firmware because
What do you
it
mean?
just, yeah, there are some, it's there are always issues in all the technologies uh, when they are growing. So we need more support. Ledger, it's a great tool, and we need to adapt. Like they, we are not building the firmware, but we are very close to the builders of the firmware, and we need more support on that. So we are pushing that on Ledger as well. To go to the firmware because we use on MyAlgo, we have a lot of users on Ledger using that, and it's important to connect Ledger to DeFi because
Hmm.
when you have like an amount of money that you want to protect, the hardware wallet it's the best way to for a normal user to protect your holdings.
Gotcha.
So uh, yes, and then we are adding developers tools to the ecosystem to ease the deployment of applications. Like we are working in really quite a lot of things. If we had more time and more resources, we would be working more and more.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a it's a it's a moment that you see that there are so many things to do that it's
Oh, sure.
a yeah it's a creative times really in Algorand.
So you mentioned Balancer, and that made me think: will it be possible for Ethereum ERC20 tokens to eventually transition to Algorand and tap into the Algorand ecosystem? Things like Balancer, Compound, Yearn Finance, um, Chainlink. Will any of these things be able to integrate onto Algorand?
I i don't think they can integrate directly, but there is a great effort that is doing rich the guys of rich language working on these protocols
Mm-hmm.
because rich it's generates TIL code for Algorand. So it's a language that is if if you think about the tech stack in Algorand, now we have TIL, which is like which is an assembly language. it's a language that is very low level. So
That's not
that
bad though
means
to bring people on board. It's not bad.
no, definitely not. And but this language is difficult to uh, to to code directly because it's low level language. Rich, they made a compiler that generates still code. So if you code in rich language, which is a higher level language, you generate till code directly, and that is great. And we have rich integration. Then we will have a clarity a compiler to generate till code. So that's the tech stack. We have till, and then we have rich, and we will have clarity. And your question was how to bring people uh, to Algorand. Rich also generates solidity code. So
Okay.
the having the rich code, uh, the read code version of some of the protocols that are built in Ethereum will ease these companies to generate the same code compatible with Ethereum and Algorand at the same time. So
So they can bring them together.
they can bring them together. And also, Rich is a language that is it's easier uh, to understand or to code because it's a higher language even than Solidity. So uh, with the you need really few number of code lines to define very complex things. So that I think the path to that reach is the way to go to onboard a new project and to even there's a lot of projects that see Solidity as very complex in the sense that you when coding in blockchain is very different from coding a normal server because
How
your
so?
code is is exposed completely exposed to attacks. It's in
Mm.
the blockchain, so anyone can hit it. And you can, if you don't didn't provide the tools to turn it off, you cannot even turn it off. So
Wow.
you can have a protocol that is leaking money, and maybe you can not even turn it off. It happened in the past. That's why now there are some tools to turn it off. Even in like there was a hack in that was called the DAO in the past of Ethereum that the money was leaking and no one was able to do anything about that. So that's incredible about smart contracts in general. So having a code that is easy to verify, that is very important, and it's not the case of Solidity as well. So languages like Rich are easier to verify, and then even it is possible to generate like a formal verification that the code itself generates has the same properties. The generated code has the same properties of the original code in Rich. So if you can create that it's in the process, really, it's something that uh, Rich ambitions.
Mm.
If you can generate the whole stack, then you have to verify only the rich code. If you can verify the rich code and know that the whole stack is correct, because if you verify the rich code, the code generated has the same properties. I mean, you have some uh, when you write the code, you have some kind of uh, requirements or whatever you call. I don't know exactly the name in English. Sorry, but uh, you have some uh, properties of the code that they have to keep in the whole tech stack. For example, if you have a property of the code and the till code doesn't have the same properties, you need to audit the till code, which is more difficult.
Okay.
The, the challenge is to keep the same properties, auditing deeply the compiler, the rich compiler. If you get this, what you have then is that you need to audit only the rich code, which is much easier. And if you audit the rich, if you audit the rich code, you will be auditing at the same time Ethereum and Algorand. So that will be awesome because the protocols will be able to code in rich and get a EVM code at the same time they will get Algorand code.
So you're saying that if you're a young developer or you want to get into blockchain, you should learn Reach. Is that what you're saying?
I am saying that exactly. And rich people are making a great work uh, with meetups with people, and yeah, you will have like a good feature. And also, rich language is a different way of coding. So, and blockchain future, if it's not rich, it will be a language that will be similar in the sense that it's not the same. We are used to code very structured in general, but this is more like more related to maths, more like where you have to say this is the idea, like uh, you want to say about properties of the code, and you want to because you want to verify it very easily. Like it's so critical that you don't want to like a big bunch of code that then is really difficult to verify. And
Mm.
also the implicances of different smart contracts talking uh, in different ways. So you have to verify so many things afterwards, and there are so many attack vectors that we need to simplify everything, the whole stack. That will be the future of the smart contract simplification.
Mm. So I got two more questions for you. The first one is we have DEXs being built on Algorand decentralized exchanges. We have yield farming protocols launching right now, Yieldly and things like that. We have NFT platforms launching. What is the thing on Algorand, the application on Algorand, that you want to see the most?
Now we I want to see all the decks. Really, it's like we need decks in different ways. I mean, decks like algo decks that has like more traditional
Trading.
decks, yeah, but also like Tinymon that it's more like InstaSwap where there is a protocol, because what we need is then other applications that will be built on top of those exchanges.
Mm.
So if you want to build a D app that needs to liquidate tokens, you need an exchange or a protocol that can liquidate the tokens.
Mm.
So DEX are the basic of the whole thing that will come afterwards. So then I will like to see lending platforms. But
Uh,
for example,
like an Aave, but on Algorand.
Aave is like, yeah, definitely.
Yes. Um, how do you think Algorand can grow um, in a year from now and in 5 years from now? How do you think things will develop, and how big do you think it could get?
I think Algorand in in a couple of months we will have the AVM, and
And
that will
what's
be
AVM? Oh, yeah. Tell
the
me. You tell me.
Algorand virtual machine.
Okay. And can you explain a little bit about that for the audience?
Uh, we Till code basically it has like now it's in version 3, and we are needing like there are some aspects of till code that are not ready now, like and all the apps are needing that because it's more like a now it's more like an approval language. The name is it's an approval language, but with what is called till 4 or avm, it will have even loops. Loops mean like a jump. You can now you cannot jump never above of your instruction. So a till code will run only uh, to the bottom, like from the top to the bottom. To make more complex things, you need loops, like codes that go above.
Okay. Yeah. I see
And
what you
to
mean.
do that, uh, what Algorand had to do was to implement the whole thing in a different way, where you cannot reduce the amount of CPU that every till code needs just by the bytes that they occupy. You need to count the amount of CPU cycles they are using. That is a different way to do it. Uh, so to create loops, you need to track the amount of resources that the program is used, because if it reached the maximum allowed, it will fail basically.
It would
So
crash or something.
it will not execute. Like
Okay.
it will never happen.
Mm.
It's so the idea is that to have that, and afterwards it will be all the speed of development of the whole ecosystem will increase a lot, because now it's complex to create the till code, but after that, and having reach on top of that, the speed will increase a lot, and we are really close to that.
So
It's
is that what's going to bring Algorand from 1,000 transactions per second to the spoken about 46,000 transactions per second? Is it upgrades to the languages like that, or is it upgrades to different systems?
no, that's a like it's a different enhancement, the number of transactions. What I mean is that even to have 1000 transactions per second now with but related to smart contracts, because there are some blockchains that have 1000 transactions per second, but when you talk about smart contract transactions, they maybe have 120 even transactions per second,
Yeah.
because blockchain transactions, just sending one token to the other, is something easy to compute.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have to compute code, it's a different story. And
Mm.
that's why Algorand is taking uh, more time maybe than another blockchain to release this version of AVM, because it will scale from scratch, and they are
Mm.
building it to scale directly. So there are some shortcuts that you can take. You can make it not scalable and then try to scale it. That's the story that did Ethereum. And now they
There's
cannot
too
scale it.
many. There's too many things using it. It's hard to scale.
It's hard to change it
Yep.
and make it scale.
There's too many
And,
players already involved with they want to say, and now they're having difficulties voting on protocols and moving forward on things.
and, and Algorand decided uh, to make things correctly from the beginning. So that takes more time to reach the the same place that others taking the shortcut. But Algorand will we are close now to the EVM, which is incredible. We've been waiting for this for years, literally. So we are glad and very happy to be close to this. And we see that Rich is building at the same time the support to build the apps with a higher level language, but take advantage of the AVM when they release it. So, and at that time, we will have a blockchain where you can build like almost anything you need. I say almost anything because blockchain code it's always limited because you cannot code forever. Like it's not like a server. You
Yeah.
will have gas limits, gas code limit. You always have limits. So in here we will have some limits, of course, as anyone has limits,
Yeah.
but the limits will be not so important, and we will be able to release almost anything. And then, of course, it will be always something to enhance always.
Yeah.
So that's technology. But we will reach to a place uh, that we were expecting when we started building all the ecosystem.
So the whole vision of what Silvio and you and the team imagined at the start is finally starting to come together. And from what I'm understanding, once you have the Algorand virtual machine plus higher functionality with reach contracts, those things will compound together to create even like exponential functionality on Algorand. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly
Wow.
that.
Wow. And those are coming later this year. Kind of you looking at a later this year, few
Eh,
months.
yeah, we are expecting this for the next months, like maybe 2 3 months from now. So
So other people in the company have in other interviews they've done spoken about central bank decentralized currencies. They're in conversations with national banks, large scale banks. Um, are things like Algorand virtual machine and higher level reach language programming, are they waiting for those things to become ready before they're jumping in? Um, or can you give any context on that? If we hear so much about the large scale um, potential of Algorand to scale to billions of users, what's stopping Algorand from doing that now?
I think there are different paths. I mean, the technology path goes in. It's a parallel to all the central banks or big institutions. The big institutions take time to onboard to any blockchain. You see that there are no big institutions in really in blockchain. They first create a program where they test the technology. It takes years to convince them, and they make the test. They make prototypes. They pilot programs, a small amount of users before they can start saying that they will build on top of Algorand or wherever. It takes a lot of time, and you see that they didn't onboard any blockchain at large scale. There are some applications, some banks using some blockchains, some especially the private versions of these blockchains more than the public version. I think Algorand it's an incredible position to onboard these kind of institutions because Algorand has an star team, Tenka's team. Is if you see the team, is the team that you want to work with. Then you have a business team that talks in the same language. It's not like you see in the blockchain ecosystem in general that uh, the developers they don't talk the same language that the big institutions or corporations talk. In Algorand, the Algorand Inc. they have the same language. So they know what their concerns, they know
Mm.
how to secure the technology in a way that they can trust or they can even verify. So that's, I think, Algorand future, it's related to two different things that will join together. One is distrust that institutions will, I'm sure that they will trust in Algorand because of these credentials that are clear to anyone.
Yeah.
And the other path is DeFi and all the protocols that you see in other blockchains now, but they will scale in Algorand in a different way.
Mm.
So when these two things will join, you will be able to connect the bank with a DeFi yield, for example, and that will be disruptive because what's what is people looking for now? They
Ways to
don't
make
want
money.
to they want to make money and more make more money than the inflation itself, and
Yeah.
that is not easy right now. It was easy before, and now to keep your savings in the long term you need to be investor. So and what is coming to help is the DeFi, but the DeFi needs to evolve to be secure because there are some DeFi protocols that are completely riskless. They don't have any risk but the technology risk, because there are some protocols that you get money not because you are lending money to another one and the other one can default your lending. It doesn't work in that way. You're lending money on a collateral,
Mm.
and if they default you get the collateral, so there is no risk. Or there are some other protocols where you put your money in a liquidity pool and you get money as a fee. So it's a yield with no risk at all,
Mm.
just the technology risk. So if we get maturity of the technology, then these banks or these institutions will onboard the retail investor
Mm.
to all this technology.
Because if you're using
And
a bank,
Algorand,
yeah, go ahead.
and Algorand is in an incredible position to be the blockchain that they will onboard on.
Because if you're using a bank, the point of using a bank is that you keep your money safe. The number won't change. And that's the
It's
biggest barrier
not
that
losing money. Not
yeah,
losing money is the first thing.
yes. And that's the biggest barrier most people have in getting into crypto. And then the next step getting into DeFi protocols is they're going to ask, what is my money safe? And so I think that's a good point you make. There are lossless DeFi protocols, but it really is the tech. Is the tech trustworthy enough, secure enough, sound and strong enough? And that's one of the biggest questions. I think that's a great answer.
Yeah, yeah, that's the now the biggest challenge of the whole ecosystem. And also, when I'm saying banks, I'm not saying banks as we know now, because if they don't adapt, someone will take their position.
Yep.
So it can be banks if they accept the new technology, or it can be neobanks or whatever they are called.
One last question. What is the next big upgrade you have planned for Algo Explorer? You brought an upgrade recently, which upgraded price charts, gave a few more indicators. I like that because I like that clarity that you can give to the community. Giving the more information you give people, the more trustworthy that you are. So, what's the next big visual or significant update for a small time user that will go on Algorand Explorer that they'll notice and will make a difference in their day-to-day usage of the site?
Yeah, we are really we are working a lot in something that is not very visible. We are migrating the whole infrastructure, and even the indexer. We rewrote all the indexer uh, to another language. We are using Go language instead of Node.js as we were using before. Uh, and we are adding also a login capabilities of the Explorer, like a user registration. So we will be able to enhance the information that user see related to the applications and the tokens. So that's the next update of the Explorer uh, to onboard users, and that will help a lot in all the other tools. You will be able in the near future you will be able to even get notifications when a transaction to your address comes, for example. uh, those kind of things that people are asking, or even institutions at an API level are needing this kind of notification. So that's the next upgrade. The first the users, and then a lot of other features that will come on top of that. New stats related to tokens will come. It will be the, I don't know if it will be the next or the other update, uh, and also like a good home for applications and assets, and related more to activity and not just first in first serve as it is now.
Mm. Give everyone a fair chance, even if they come on later down the line.
Yeah, so if you have more transactions, more activity, you will be shown uh, above. So that's the idea.
Okay. So rewarding the protocols and the projects that are reaching the most people, are doing the most good, or having the most impact by bringing them to the forefront of users' eyes.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not that easy because there are some cheats that you can do to go, like you can generate fake transactions, and so it's not.
Transactions worth nothing, just
Yeah,
zero algo transactions or something like
so
that too.
it's something that you need like different dimensions to measure. So uh, it it is fair, really.
All right. Pablo, thank you so much for coming on the show and answering some questions for us. It was absolutely amazing to have you.
Thank you, Ibu.
Thank you so much.